Well, welcome everybody to NHFT's public board meeting. Everybody's very welcome this morning. My name is Julia Curtis. I'm one of the non-executive directors and deputy chair of NHFT. And as part of my role, I chair the board once a year. So it's me this morning. Faisal, our chair, will actually be joining us shortly, just after his IT equipment updates. We all go through that in the NHS. So he'll be joining us shortly. So everybody's very welcome. Welcome governors particularly and members of the public who may be watching as we go through our meeting. So we have apologies for absence from Dr. Itai Matambiki, who's our medical director, David Williams, our director of strategy and partnerships, and I have no other apologies. I don't think we're expecting any others. No, thank you very much. Thanks, Faisal. Welcome this morning. It's great. Okay, any declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda? Anything anybody needs to declare? No, thank you very much for that. So we'll take paper A, which is the minutes of the previous meeting on the 28th of May. Great set of minutes, thank you. Anything anybody needs to comment for accuracy? Any of the pages? No. And anything not on the agenda from the minutes? That's great, thank you very much. The action sheet is paper B. There's no outstanding actions. There were two previously that have been closed. Paper C is our Board of Directors annual forward plan. You did.
Sorry, really pernickety point on our forward plan. There is a reference to the appointment of the SID. I think that should just be appointments of relevant non-executives because there might be other appointments next year as well.
Thank you. Are we happy to just take that amendment? Yeah, Richard, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Judith. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so that's the board annual forward plan. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to our care delivery pathway story. Very excited this morning to be able to allow Anne to introduce the story, and we're really looking forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you. Over to you, Anne. Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. So, yeah, we're really excited today to hear from our specialist and secured care delivery pathway. And within that, we've got some really interesting and exciting patient feedback and experiences, which would be really good to share with you. I'm going to hand over to Anthony Blades, the operational director, who will just introduce the team and the pathway to us.
Thanks, Anne, and good morning, everybody. We're very much looking forward to sharing some of the work that we do in our care delivery pathway. I'm joined today by Rachel Palethorpe, who is our assistant director of the turnaround team in the pathway, and Samuel McPherson, who is the founder of Maverick Sounds. Before we move on, I'd just like to take a few moments to just give some updates in terms of the pathway. We have completed a substantial onboarding of new prisons in Notts and Lincolnshire, and part of my priority moving forward is to take a lot of the expertise of learning that these new services give and synergize with our current batch of services to really make sure that our offer to those that we care for is at the absolute optimum of what we can deliver. So that's very, very exciting. In terms of how large the pathway is in terms of prisons, we are roughly responsible for 9.5% of the prison population in England and Wales. And that roughly equates to just under 9,000 prisoners. So that's quite an undertaking. We also cover and have a footprint in 7 different counties. The other thing I want to touch on is that we are, within our services, have a gender dysphoria service, and we are actively engaging with the national work following the Levy report in terms of developing our service to improve for patients. And finally, I'd just like to touch on the previous patient story that we spoke about, which was the Women's Health Hub at HMP Peterborough. That has continued to develop in a really positive way, both in terms of the interventions that the patients have within the prison, but also to give them the confidence and the safety to engage with services on release. and that's really key to continue their health outcomes. Forgive me if that was a little bit of a whistle-stop tour. I'm very conscious that time is precious. So please enjoy what we're about to speak to this morning. We very much welcome questions after the presentation. And if I could hand over to Rachel now, please.
Thanks, Anthony. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm going to be Sam's assistant this morning, so I'll shortly share some slides with you, which is Sam's presentation, which Sam will then talk to and really bring alive the work that him and his team do. Just a little bit of sort of how we got here. So colleagues, I'm sure, will be aware that we transferred a cohort of prisons in Notts and Lincs, and that started with H&P Loudon Grange in July of 2025 and concluded with North Sea Camp in March 2026. And upon getting to know a little bit about Loudon Grange, speaking to our colleagues there, we identified that we potentially had a cohort of men in Loudon Grange who were young and bored and disengaged and not using their time in the most positive way. And we also recognised that we might not have the answer to that ourselves and that our partners might be able to assist us. I then just fortuitously, Sam and I worked together many years ago in the North East prisons, longer than I think either of us would probably care to remember. And I saw the amazing work that Sam did with a very, very similar population in the North East. So with Anthony's blessing, reached out to Sam and he very graciously agreed to work with us. Before I hand over to Sam for his presentation, I also just wanted to share that we recently had Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons visit at Loudon Grange and a Care Quality Commission visit. The background to that was that in March 2025, there was a full inspection of the prison, and it was an incredibly worrying report that they felt that the healthcare services were not fit for purpose at that time. Now, this is absolutely no criticism of the amazing hardworking staff that were in that prison and remain in that prison, helping us take care of the patients, but it was in a very difficult place. We're delighted that when we got a revisit in May, the update was that they felt that healthcare had made good progress, that there was robust leadership, and that there was much better governance and staffing was much improved. HMIP have published a report in terms of their independent review of progress, which is available. And just to add, and not wanting to embarrass Sam, HMIP noted 2 areas of outstanding practice, and one of those was Maverick Sounds and how that is improving people's well-being. So it was just to share that whilst we think it's incredible, we're not just marking our own homework here, and we are awaiting our CQC report as well, and we're anticipating that that will be equally as positive. So without further ado, I will share this presentation, which hopefully everyone can see. And Sam, over to you. Just give me a nod when you want to move through slides.
Okay. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Rachel. And again, thank you everyone for this opportunity for me to present what's been going on. I'm trying to stay ahead of time, so I'm going to be brief. So forgive me if I'm skipping over slides, but I'll give you the nod, Rach, for the next one. We'll go through, that's the table of contents. But I thought it would be relevant to start with my backstory. So I grew up in the poor parts of Birmingham that was thriving in poverty, but lacking opportunity for young men like myself to express themselves positively. And through school, college, university, I always understood the importance of having some sort of medium to channel my emotions in a healthy way. And that vehicle happened to be music. Maverick Sounds was established for that reason, for one clear vision, and that was to use music as a way to help people in custody make better life choices, develop confidence, and process difficult experiences. So to date, we're proud to say that Maverick Sounds has worked with over 800 participants in prisons across the country. We've created over 1,000 songs, and we've delivered 30 live performances in 22 prisons. But it brings me to the pinnacle of my career, which is working with NHFT. We also have employed 2 lived experience members from the previous cohorts that we've worked with, and they deliver mentoring with us till this day. Next, Rich. So this is the program in its entirety under the NHFT Specialist and Secured Services care pathway. Maverick Sounds is essentially a non-formal education program, and it's adapted around the Arts Award. Upon completion, participants get half a GCSE or UCAS points should they want to pursue university. We use music as a tool to create a safe space for expression, self-awareness, and skill development. And participants explore through music, lyric writing, performance, production, and audio engineering. The learners bring their own creative styles to the program, and their own influences, contributing to an environment that is culturally relevant to them. Next. So in addition, these are the additional outcomes. We've got the CD production, and this is the biggest selling point across prisons across the country is all of the songs that are recorded during the program, we take them away, and me and my staff, we audio engineer them. So this is a process where we make the sound professional as possible, and then they get it back on a CD. And I suppose this is the tangible reward. This is really effective because it's also a really good reflection tool. So what we found is the lyrics that some of our participants have started with are completely different in over a certain period of time. It also shows us what they're thinking at the time and what they're feeling. But yeah, that CD process, the guys get it back either in their prop box or they get to keep it. The next one is performances. So this is really important. So at Loudon Grange in particular, we did 4 performances, sorry. On one day we did 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. We invited all the staff and even the governors and the SLT team. The governor herself came down, and this is, encouraging greater staff buy-in, seeing participants in a different light and being able to share their experiences. And it's almost like the humanity part, where you're getting to see them talk about some of the things that they've been through and being able to express that in a positive way. And the last point is prison radio submissions. So we work with prison radio to submit some of the songs that the lads have been performing and writing on NPR. Just to point out, as an organization, we're really passionate about fighting against corporate exploitation. What I mean by that is there's massive A&R companies and music corporations that feel that it's absolutely okay to project just a message of violence. And in my career, I've seen loads and loads of positive artists, rappers, singers, poets that are have the courage to talk about much more positive themes, vulnerable themes, but they don't get the quality of coverage. So that's what we're passionate about, is if participants are talking about something that is meaningful, let's work to put them on a platform. And some of the one-off projects that we do, family day events, Black History Month, and working with veterans. So often we work with lads that are struggling with mental health, and we've done choirs and etc. But that's sort of everything in a nutshell. Music content to be covered, so just quickly brushing over everything. Song structure, which is how do you make a verse, chorus, bridge. Mood music, expressing being able to evoke emotion through all genres. Life maps, stereotypes versus anti-stigma, and taking it back to school. So we've got literacy devices, similes, metaphors, personification, onomatopoeia, and I guess this is just to improve overall vocabulary for our participants. The music production side, we use electronic software, which is Logic Pro, and we always encourage to use live instruments. There's nothing like that form of expression. Lads, that if you can play piano or guitar, let's see if we can mix that. And the last point is audio engineering, which is what I mentioned earlier. Next, Rach. So on the left is a summary overview of what every session looks like. On the right is an example of one of our worksheets. We work closely with worksheets. We believe that you have to do a lot more as music facilitators than just giving our population a microphone and telling them to write. We have to take them on a journey. I just wanted to say a special thank you and a shout out to Dr. Sunil on the NHFFT. He has worked closely with our program to make sure that we are more trauma informed in what we're delivering. But as you can see on the left, in the duration of minutes, every 10 minutes, we change up our session. But we start predominantly with drama games, drama activities. I feel that this is important, especially for our neurodiverse population, who it's important for them to express themselves through their body. It readies them for learning. So we start with drama activities and then we get onto the theme of the day. As you can see here, in this case, it's stereotypes versus the real me, all about anti-stigma. On the outside of that silhouette of a person, we ask, can you write how you think you are perceived by the public or how you were perceived by people that you love versus who you are on the inside? So as someone might say that you're aggressive on the outside, it might be that you're a father of one on the inside. Next page. And these are two examples from Loudon Grange. On the left, you've got someone who's been in recovery for 4 months. But as I said, he's still got some of the stigma on the outside versus who he is on the inside. Next page. And then just continuing, so we've got a little sheet called Rhyming Words. This is for self-actualization and self-esteem. I am, so you pick a word from the inside and then you rhyme with it. And then once you've got a certain amount of rhyming words, we write a song about it. Already there, you've got a positive theme. And this is sort of the breakdown of what we use with these worksheets. Every session will go in this order. Yeah. So our objectives for our work, I think one of the things that we wanted to achieve when we went into Loudon Grange is to encourage a greater willingness among learners to engage with the prison regime, moving beyond limited aspirations such as becoming a wing cleaner or remaining behind their doors. There's loads of studies that show us that disengagement with the regime, it sort of breeds stagnant environment, and boredom can lead to negative behaviors. So we believe that by creating opportunities for growth and hope, we could create a more productive culture within the prison. Our other aim was to support NHST with referrals within mental health, with substance misuse, neurodivergence, and healthcare pathways. And overall, we just wanted to use music to improve the overall well-being of our learners in our care. Next page. So I just wanted to put out 2 pictures. This is what it looks like. That's what a session looks like. And again, this is the importance of the lads being on their feet and expressing themselves through their body. Next again, Rich. And again, this is what a session looks like. I know we're discussing through a Teams, but I would love for, I would invite people to, watch our sessions if it is possible, because this is what it can look like for hours straight when participants are engaged in their reflection and writing their lyrics. So we get on to the impact and outcomes. Beautiful picture of us outside Loudon Grange. So what we found is during the last course at H&P Loudon Grange, we engaged 35 participants over 6 weeks. 100% of participants demonstrated an improved well-being score. So the way it worked is we asked our participants, how are you feeling mentally or within yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 at the start of the program, and we did the same again at the end of the program, and there was an average increase of 2.3. 91% of participants were described by staff as being engaged and focused. So our aim is working with NHFT to sort of understand our population. I mean, these figures scream out what the needs are. 45% of our referrals were diagnosed or undergoing assessments with neurodivergence. 12.5 were receiving substance misuse support, and 19% had long-term health conditions. Just referring back to my last point, why it's so certain it was such a blessing to use something other than traditional methods, especially with our neurodiverse population, in terms of how we engage and how we get them expressing themselves through their body and making our sessions active. Thematic insights. So our practitioners, we populate information for each participant gained through conversations, lyrics, and sort of just genuine interactions. And we did this to help build and understand individuals and their root cause for some of the challenges and the feelings that they're experiencing. Participants appeared to become vulnerable in their creativity, uplifting one another, discussing aspirations through loss, grief, relationships, breakdown, and life events. So I wanted to dig deeper into one of the case studies. We have here a case study, Z. This was a participant from Loudon Grange. Participant C, you know, just humanizing the process and just painting a picture. He was the life of the room. He was the bubbly one. He was the one always talking, bouncing around, and he was very musical, very talented. And we asked him the score. How are you feeling in yourself? Give us a score from 1 to 5 on your well-being. And he's just paraphrasing what he said. He would say to us, I'm feeling great. I'm always smiling, no matter what. Nothing can get me down, sort of thing. So he scored 5, and then he scored 5 again at the end. But what we quickly realized is when it came to him recording his music, there were suicidal themes constantly. And this demonstrates why qualitative data is essential alongside well-being scores. So on this next slide, I thought it was relevant to show just a 30-second clip, which we call a soundbite of the songs that these guys have actually done. And this is Participant Z. So if we can get sound and if we can hear it, should we have a listen?
From young, but all I've been feeling is heartbreak. Family members are passing away, now I can't get rid of this heartache. They ask if I'm good, I tell them I'm fine, I'm lying, I'm going through dark days. I'm doing life, I roll me a spliff, I sit at the window and stargaze. Don't tell me you love me if you're gonna go and leave me on my own. I get it if you wanna go, the way that I'm feeling, I'm better alone. I keep on calling, I keep on texting, I keep on sending voicemails to your phone. Well, you know about getting dressed up for a V and you just get ghosts. That shit are worse and brother, it hurts. And if it ain't happened to you, you won't know. The way I'm feeling now, take shit out of the grave and put me in a hole.
So everybody's probably thinking, I didn't hear a word what you just said. But if I was to break it down, and I've just kind of ripped some of the lyrics that he wrote, his first opening line was, from young, all I've been feeling is heartbreak. Family members are passing away. Now I can't get rid of this heartache. And then this line is what made me chuckle, because he literally says, they ask if I'm good, I tell them I'm fine, I'm lying, I'm going through dark days. And again, this is the theme that we kept seeing with most of our participants. So if you go to, I mean, I don't know how we are for time, but we'll go to soundbite number 2 and listen. And this is another participant.
I can't lie, man, this mental health is through the roof. Wish my feelings bulletproof, just like my soul is. Emotions is mixed up, I'm just trying to forgive. I think I'm suicidal, dog, I'm jumping off this. How many lives have you saved? How much lives have you made? You know we're clocking up these deeds, cause our life clock is counting down. Say your prayers before you sleep, just in case it's right around. Just in case it's right around, I navigate my right of way, flowing like a tidal wave. Someone told me where's the stage, I know people know this pain. Can we talk, that's all I'm saying, a simple hi, are you okay? Mental health is not a game, my mental health is not the same.
Let's stop that there. Again, suicidal themes, it keeps reoccurring. We'll play the last one, just because we're cautious of time.
Would you like soundbite 3 or 4, Sam?
We'll use soundbite 4.
Okay.
Listen. Yeah.
Has that stopped playing?
Yeah.
Apologies.
Apparently life's good to tell me why I want to end it. Suicidal thoughts while I'm scrolling through my Netflix. Usually I talk, now they got me on the meds list. If heaven is real, I really hope that I'm accepted. So now I'm at the meds hatch, licking all these meds back. Suicidal thoughts got me staring at my bed pack. I be on the wing, so I'm staring out the window. I wanna say I can't be saying on the pin phone. It's crazy.
Say it's me who's acting strange, but it's me who went away. I had a shooter on my way. Now I wanna move out far away. I don't mind it, don't mind it. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's all timing. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to make a better life. I'm gonna use my time before I lose my mind. I'm gonna try to make a better life. I'm gonna use my time before I lose my mind. My mind.
Yeah, it's sad hearing it now at this point, isn't it? And if I know I'm talking to experts in your field that understand some of our population, what they're experiencing, but I think just to flip it on its head, what we saw with what we was working with is it was good to see that their well-being did increase after, and it demonstrated that it did make them feel better getting it out and expressing what they're feeling. But I'm gonna kind of rush through this section just for time, but you've got the themes that came out through conversations and lyrics, and two of the top was life experiences and trauma. So those were the two. Continuing, Rach. So learning and adapting the themes, themes like trauma, relationship breakdown, care experience point to early, often undiagnosed disruptions that manifest later in life as mental health challenges or disengagement. Sharing these patterns will hopefully enable us to move beyond reactive care and towards prevention. Themes such as aspirations, creativity, uplifting of others, highlight strengths and desires for growth. This emphasizes the value in us creating unique interventions that support long-term recovery. Participants were more forthcoming with their true emotions during recording music rather than conventional conversations. And mental health challenges and neurodiverse prevalence demonstrates the need for more physical tools such as workbooks, journals, and care packages to encourage reflection and self-worth. So these are some of the testimonials from the participants themselves. I promise it's in English. This is just the way the lads communicate with each other. So on the second one in particular, I mean, it seems like he's talking in third person, but it's first person, but maybe second person. But he's basically saying he brought us all together. It brought us closer. It was something that was more of a humanistic experience. And on to the last slide. And just wrapping up, this is what I wanted to say to everyone is through our approach, we're not suggesting that music replaces therapy, medication, or professional support, because it absolutely doesn't, but it just reminds us that creativity can reach people in ways that traditional approaches sometimes can't. And that's what this relationship and this partnership with NHFT has allowed us to do. Thank you for your time. I don't know if we've got time for any questions.
Did you want to come back in, Anthony, before we move on to questions?
So Sam, I thought that was a very, very powerful presentation, actually, and a real illustration of what we can achieve in partnership. So thank you very, very much on behalf of our care delivery pathway. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks very much, Anthony. Oh my goodness, Sam. I'm almost speechless, which is very unusual for me, but what a powerful, powerful presentation. Thank you so much. So much I'd like to say, but actually we've got quite a few people that would like to ask you a question, if that's okay, or a comment. So I'm going to let them come in. So I'm going to bring in Paul, our finance director, if that's okay first.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Sam. It's nice to have another Brummie this morning. I tend to get exposed as the only one. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for showing. And there's not a question in here, Sam. So don't worry. But I think there is something for us as a board and us as a wider NHS to sort of take from what you've just set out. The fact that we can use something like music. But also the fact of the process that you used around understanding the population, the constant wellbeing scores that you referenced, 100% of the wellbeing scores moved up through your programme, I think is a huge testament to, first of all, to what you do, but also for how we in the NHS need to think outside of the traditional forms of how we deliver services, how we can deliver for people and for patients. And so as the NHS changes, I think for us as a board, it's very much, Julia, for us to hold in our mind how these alternative approaches can be really beneficial, as Anthony said, working in partnership with what we do. But it isn't just thinking about delivering NHFT services in the traditional way. When I talk about us not being able to afford to carry on delivering our services in the way that we always have done, these are the sorts of examples that are really brilliant at highlighting that there are alternatives for delivering, and the fact that those wellbeing scores are improved across all of the people that you're working with, Sam, is huge testament to you and the rest of the team. So well done.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Absolutely agree with that. Angela?
Yeah, just to say, Sam, inspiring work and the impact of music, even with us in the board today, is just so palpable and evident. So really helpful, and you've really given us a very good insight into the work as well. And I think, again, reinforces the reasons as to why we chose to enter into more prisons to support people, as you've described. And I think that's just brought that to life for the board. But I'm thinking through, as we're going into new territory in terms of more forensic services, and you just see the sort of opportunity around some of that into potentially some of those services that we will need to think through as well. But really helpful, and thank you so much for the time you took for the presentation and sound information together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Melanie?
Hi, yeah, I'm one of the non-executive directors, Sam. Yeah, brilliant presentation, as everyone said, just echo all of that. I think particularly powerful, music we know is powerful. We see it with dementia choirs and places where music enables people to express things that otherwise they can't for whatever reason. And I'm particularly impressed by the ability of your course to get people to share what they're actually feeling inside rather than what they sort of demonstrate to the outside. And I just think there must be opportunities for this kind of program to be used, modified to help young people who've experienced trauma, in CAMS, in areas where people will naturally bond with music and enable them to show things. So I was interested to know whether you had yourselves thought about the cross-transferability. I don't think that word exists, actually, just cut that from the minutes. The ability to use this kind of course in other mental health settings. Is that something that you've thought about or been approached about?
No, not yet. I think particularly it's widely being used more with the younger population.
Yeah.
But as you said, it connects everyone. It's not ageist. It's a universal language, really.
Yeah.
In terms of, but it's something that we definitely have to look into, because it's hard to justify at times. That's the real thing that we find difficult. And if I was to speak honestly, music can be used very negatively or very positively, as we see in the media.
Yeah.
So yeah, just it's something that we definitely have to look into for sure.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Jo?
You, Jo.
Sorry. Thanks, Sam. Extraordinary. I felt quite emotional during some of that. And as another Midlander, Paul, you're not on your own. The work that this has done, I previously worked in Wolverhampton with guns and gangs, sort of youth violence, and it's just the impact is incredible. Two things, really. Mm-hmm. So the first thing, I think, is you talk about literacy skills and improving the outcomes for course participants. I think the other thing that's really important is oracy skills, the ability to actually speak and communicate, which is a really important attribute that people need to have in their arsenal when they leave prison. Just two questions. Have you done any longitudinal studies for participants from your course to see what happens in the longer term with them? And then secondly, it's Melanie's sort of touched on it, is questions of scalability. Is this something that you can, you potentially, could you do this in every prison across the land if there is a willingness to do that? Thank you.
Yeah, the first question, the answer to your first question is we are still working with that challenge, because as we all know, short-term intervention isn't as impactful. We're talking about long life lived behaviors, and we're trying to come in for 2 weeks and trying to have an impact that literally essentially changes their entire mindset. So yeah, that's been a challenge in itself, but again, we would always push for longer interventions. So for example, bringing people back as mentors and continuing to engage with them, invest them, and now they're teaching something and getting they're getting enjoyment out of honing new skills. I think the second question you asked, what was it? What was the question you asked again? Sorry, number 2.
It was about scalability.
Oh yeah,
within the, is it possible to just replicate this across every prison that's open to it?
Absolutely, that's something that we aim to do. I think at the moment we have a small team, and again, it's about employing people that understand it, that get it, and it's, if I'm being honest, it's hard to find great people that care about having humanity at the heart of what you're doing. But we would love to scale, because the program can be delivered. It's exactly the same program. So it's something that we're working on. It's good because everything's new. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Sam. Dave, and then Duncan. Thanks.
Thanks, Julia. Great work, Sam. Yeah, really inspiring, as I've said. And we're involved with a few, so an offer of support. We're involved with a few things in relation to creative health more generally. There's somebody called Sally Varnum who's leading a bid across this patch of the East Midlands. I'll send you the link for that, but it might help you. Those networks might help as you scale, particularly getting into the creative health space. So I'll loop you into those. And then just a thought for Faisal and for us as a board about maybe bringing you back to the AGM if you're up for it, to do something to promote the work to a wider platform. That's again just an annual event, but something to think about. Thanks again, really great.
I would love that. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. Great invitation. Well done. Thank you, Duncan.
Yeah, Sam, thanks a lot. Absolutely a presentation that shifts your way of thinking about things and thinking about the world. So thank you for that. I found myself reflecting, especially when you mentioned the veterans, how actually the approach that you're taken through an activity is such an impactful way of reaching people, especially men. And men's mental health. And so my question really was, do you feel in the veterans community, walking is seen as a big activity to help people? Do you think there's the opportunity to take some of the other skills about how you use the feedback, the well-being, how you've monitored over this for any length of time, and share that with other groups that we work with on activities such as walking?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a tough space, isn't it? Because for our veterans in prison, we just feel like they're getting traumatized all over again every day. So I know music is just one medium, but again, activities, gym, even other creative arts is just, it's just a space that's needed for that. And then a place just to talk, a place just to feel safe, and just be able to express that. I think, again, working with our veterans in that population, we speak often about purposeful activity, when in actual fact it gives them structure but no time to really express themselves in a therapeutic way. So again, these are things that we need to look into about what we can introduce to make it a safer place. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anne, did you want to come back in, or shall I just conclude? Is there anything you wanted to wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I won't take any more time than that. It's really important work and really impactful. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks,
Thank
Anne.
you.
So Sam, finally, I'm not going to try and sum all that up. My goodness me, apart from to say what a fantastic insight into, you know, partnership working, the opportunities, the impact of what you're doing just seems incredible. And I've just noticed something you said about you've got to care about humanity. How powerful is that, you know? And so thank you, not just to your whole team, but particularly to you, because you've brought us, you know, such a powerful example of what people can do when they care. And it does, it makes you very emotional, me too. So thank you on behalf of everybody. And it seems really exciting for the future. And you've opened us up, each of us, I think, to some great opportunities. And thank you for everything you and your team do for such a vulnerable group of people. And thank you and good luck for the future. And we'd love to have you back again. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Anthony and Rachel.
Thanks,
Thank you.
For bringing that.
Bye. Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Wow, powerful story. Follow that. I'm going to hand over to Faisal for the chair's report to the board following that. Thank you, Faisal.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. And I hope you can hear me with the stresses of re-engaging with technology this morning. Can you hear me okay? Oh, great. Yeah, well, Julia's already said that. How do I follow that presentation and level of interest and engagement? But I shall try. Just as always, we'll take the report as read and we'll just draw out a few highlights. We've had a number of sessions with our governors and including our joint board with the governors session. One of the things certainly since I joined as group chair in 1st November last year is the level of passion and engagement and care that our governors bring to our engagement with them and the work of NHFT. And these events were just exemplars of the ways the governors engage with that process and including the new ways of engagement models that we're being asked to look at, which I think was really a productive exercise. In terms of a couple of other highlights to bring out was from the Mental Health Shares Network last month, which really talked about engagement and the importance of engagement and not just relying on one mechanism to engage with our communities, our staff and wider population. It was again really heartening from a number of the workshops that I've been involved in with NHFT, the breadth of engagement that we already have. And one of the things that we took away from the governors workshop was how do we map all of this great practice so we don't end up replicating things, but also how do we do engagement working in partnership, which I think is across the system. So that's not just the NHS system, but the wider public sector and the voluntary community sector, which was a really great takeaway. Very finally, just the NHS Expo, first time I've been in for a number of years. There was a lot of focus on digital innovation, the worlds of IHOs, etc. A really interesting takeaway was in the rush to adopt digital innovation that we don't leave people behind. So not just digital poverty, but also digital literacy. How do we help people to engage with digital mechanisms so we don't leave any people behind? But also, how can we better affect it to maximize staff and service user patient experience, which I thought were really great. So I'll leave it there.
Great, thank you, Faisal. I think we've just frozen. Never mind. We'll hand over to anybody else for any other contributions. Does anybody want to make any comments, particularly Judith?
Just a really brief one, because I know Paul's not going to do it, so I'm going to do it for him. But
Julie, if there's anything else anybody wants.
Oh, Faisal, I think we're having a few audio problems with you and screen problems. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I was about to say.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, Faisal. Okay, thanks very much. You did. Sorry, carry on.
So yes, NHS Alliance held its NED forum a couple of weeks ago, and Paul came along to present the value in healthcare, i.e. how to approach finances in a more modern world. It was really well received, and lots of positive feedback from NEDs and lots of follow-up questions. So I just wanted to raise that because it was a really positive event. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Judith. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else got anything they'd like to comment on or add? No? Duncan, thank you very much.
Yeah, just commenting on the regional team under the leadership of Regional Chair Russell Hardy, arranged a really good session for non-executive directors looking at areas across the NHS, across the Midlands, for improvement, including performance, productivity, although much of it was aimed at our friends and colleagues in the acute sector. There were some lessons for us to take away from that, and I know we'll be having the opportunity to discuss that a little in our Tier 1 committees, but I wanted to just give a shout out. It was a really productive session.
Thanks, Duncan. Yeah, they were really good, and just a great example, a great opportunity for us to share as non-execs some of the good practice we know that's going on, and share examples and where things haven't gone well and how we can improve. So that really, really good. Thanks for that, Duncan. In that case, thanks, Faisal, for the report. We'll take that as read. Thank you very much for that. So we'll move on to paper E, which is Angela's Chief Exec report to the board. Thanks, Angela.
Thanks, Julia. And again, just want to start by with enormous thanks to everybody for supporting and managing through the heat, which we're experiencing today as well. We have had obviously quite some extreme weather conditions, but above all else, staff have coped extremely well, supporting patient care, being innovative and adapting, and being flexible in arrangements, and we really do appreciate that. And on an ongoing basis, we'll need to review and understand this in terms of how we normalise these types of events, which clearly is in hand. People will see within the report the reference to St Andrews Healthcare, and this is obviously a significant piece of my Chief Exec report in relation to the board's decision to step in to support forensic services as part of provision that is obviously being provided at the moment by St Andrews Healthcare locally. This is a significant decision, but an important one, and I think we continue to work with partners, including St Andrews, NHS England, Integrated Care Board, and others on a regional and national basis to prepare for that. And of course, that is a lot of work across the piece, but it is significant. And as we've said at the board in our decision making, this is our population of Northamptonshire, and we will endeavour to respond to that challenge, and we will keep the board updated in due course as we prepare for that. Another significant one that again I know is in the paper but important I think to draw attention to is the submission success around Advanced Foundation Trusts and Integrated Healthcare Organisation or designation. These are really important for us, not only as a trust, but as our population and for Northamptonshire and beyond as well. So the details are within the report, but I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for supporting those submissions. We don't get through those processes without collective work and evidence, and certainly we've had fantastic support from partners, which is very, very pleasing indeed. And I think that is significant as we step into opportunities around priority areas of focus through children, young people, mental health, learning disability and autism, because this will be a partnership endeavour. So really appreciate our partners in support on an ongoing basis. And then within the report, people will see that I did reference the new Secretary of State, but following that preparation for the report, we've had a further change following the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. So we do now have the Right Honourable Yvette Cooper as that Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. And I will leave it there. Thank you, Julia.
Great, thanks, Angela. Has anybody got any comments or questions? Tim?
Angela, yeah, I just wanted to ask about the extreme heat, just because the government's now said that climate risk assessment has said the number, duration and likelihood of events is only going to increase. Are we adapting our capital plans to look at how we look after, I mean, it's not just patients, but staff as well? So looking forwards, and I see Paul's hand has gone straight up, so maybe he wants to pick that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult, Tim, given the fact that capital is not in huge abundance, and we're going to have to balance off how we do that. However, I think, as you just described, and Angela had already alluded to, the frequency and the length of these heat events is going to become part of our normal working life, isn't it? So we need to make sure that we've got the right environments as often as possible. We will come forward with a plan around some of our priority areas that really need sorting in the next 12 months for next summer. But there will be others that will be on that priority list as well that go further afield. So we'll need a sort of 4 or 5 year plan that builds in those priority areas, that does commit some additional capital spend to sorting out some of those areas, and also not just jump to some of the easier things of putting some of these sort of small mobile aircon units into rooms that sort of take the edge off, but they don't solve the issue long term. So it's making sure that we're investing in the right piece of kit for all of this as well.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Angela. I totally echo the thanks to staff and also for community staff out and about, travelling and in people's homes, and people do a fantastic job. And thanks, Paul, for that. We need to think about them in the years going forward, certainly. So thank you for that. Linda, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just wanted to respond to Tim's important question with regards to staff support. So we have varied the uniform in line with the dress code policy. So I have reviewed that so that staff are in more comfortable attire, because some of the tunics are warmer, as you'll appreciate. So we've done that to support the staff, which has been well received. We also are encouraging our staff to keep hydrated. So we know a lot of people get really busy, don't have time to actually take a drink, but we've got that, and we've got other colleagues who've been proactive on their units, providing bottles of water so that people aren't having to go that far to access drinks. So there's a lot that people are doing together to support each other's staff, and also ensure that we're keeping patients safe during the increased periods of the warm weather. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. And out and about on service visits, we've also seen where staff are really thinking about patients and service users too, with ice creams, lollies, water, hydration, etc. So again, thanks to everybody. Anne?
Yeah, just to say, in the sort of the infrastructure around that, when we went into the red alert, the EPRR process moves in, and we have got seasonal weather plans and all the things that are required under our core standards, which we can monitor against. We also used an MS Teams form to be able to collect information about specifically where the most in need areas. It was hot for everybody, but where were we seeing temperatures that would even worse than other areas, so that can inform the estates plan that Paul's mentioned. So we sort of use that opportunity to gather as much data and information as possible to feed into that. So I've also been, during the middle of that heatwave, attended some national COOs meetings where it was a very high topic of conversation, as you can imagine, and just sharing some of the sort of best practice was really useful, that it's not always air conditioning that is the answer. Sometimes it is, but it's not always, and being able to share that and understand that from an environmental point of view was really important. So we keep connected into all of those forums.
Thanks, Anne. Natasha?
Thanks, Julia. A complete change of temperature. I wanted to just touch on the NHSE guidance around flu vaccinations that's in the report. And I suppose personal to me in terms of background in public health and having worked with the Nen Valley locality GPs where flu was their primary driver of mortality each year. And we did a lot of work when I worked in Northamptonshire many years ago. And therefore, I suppose I really understand deeply the importance of something that is so basic for our communities in terms of making sure that we're doing this. But for some cohorts, like people with additional long-term conditions, this can be much more life-threatening. And we all play a massive part of this, don't we, in terms of making sure that we have that level of immunity. So I was just really interested, I suppose, in terms of as we have new guidance, it would be lovely to see back at the board at some point or at one of the committees once we understand what that level of variation is for our organisation and what the new guidance is, just really to kind of get into the understanding around our plans and what we're going to be able to do differently to support both our residents and also our staff to really increase seasonal flu, because it's an intervention that's very impactful in terms of reducing winter mortality.
Yeah, no, I mean, I quite agree, Tash. I think this is a significant safety element, and we need to view it like that. And I think increasingly that is the focus the board needs to have across all boards in terms of, and Region talking about the harm actually by not having the vaccination levels in the right place. Linda is very much leading this and has work underway in terms of that. And there is, I think at regional level, 10-point plan underway in terms of sharing practices, but also creating that focus and conditions through board agendas. So I think you're right, we wouldn't disagree. That said, it does still remain challenging in terms of people's vaccinations, but I'm confident that Linda is on it, but also would be able to bring further information back in due course as well.
Super, thanks, Angela.
Thanks, Tash. Thanks, Angela. And I'm presuming that we will do, Linda, as we do every year, we receive information and updates through the Quality and Safety Committee that comes up through the routine governance of Infection Control Group and Safety Group and up to Quality and Safety Committee. And every year, I know you do a look back on what we've learned from last year's campaign and implement, learning from that too. So we'll look out for that. Did you want to come in, Linda?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the flu groups have already been stood up. So if you recall, we used to start around sort of the beginning of September. Now we actually start in May to do that planning well ahead of winter. So the flu groups, we've already scoped out. We know there's the stretch, we know the target. So the plans will be coming through, and you will get that information coming into coming through Quality and Safety Committee. And then it will be reported up to board with the usual plan for how we will roll out, because this year's challenge is to try and get a certain number vaccinated within the first 10 days, and we are up for that challenge.
Great, thank you, Linda, and a challenge to all of us as board members to make sure we get our flu vaccinations in the first 10 days then. Thank you for that. Okay, if there's no further comments, thank you, Angela, for your report. And we note there's an appendix on the East Midlands Alliance plan for the forthcoming year. Thank you for all of that. Okay, great. Shall we move on to report F, which is the Managing Director's report, and over to you, David. Thanks.
Thanks, Julia. And I'm going to keep the theme of focusing on our people and on staff during my update as well. So taking paper as read. Just as an exception to that, just to call out the National Win for CAMHS Collaborative at the first NHS Excellence Awards. It's great to be a winner in the inaugural NHS Excellence Awards. They are, the equivalent of the HSJ Awards at this point in time, but also fabulous for that work to get recognised. And I know key people like Paul and Sachin are involved there, and indeed David Williams, who is one of the key architects of that piece of work initially in the Trust. So fab to see that, and well done to everyone for that. Just gives people a spring in their step. The other thing just to pull out now, focusing on staff, are the launch of our Difference Makers. So this is our new, what replaces our Compassion Champion awards, and it's a monthly reward and recognition program where we celebrate our colleagues. And particularly for the board, I think if you're going on service visits and you come across colleagues that you think are, you know, doing exceptional work or demonstrating and living our values really clearly and in an inspired way, put them forward for a difference maker. The materials are on the staff room for you to help navigate that. And we know from the Compassion Champion process that was really well received with colleagues. It just gave people again a real spring in their step, and yeah, important that we recognise and acknowledge the hard work. Linked to that, of course, are our staff survey results, and the You Said We Will campaign launched in June. You should be seeing some posters now up and around various campuses for use in team meetings and local discussions, and that helps that feedback loop for individuals so they feel empowered, which links to our empowerment and accountability work across teams. So important just to flag that as well. Equally, our Thrive Awards, the nomination is open now with spotlights on Healthcare Team of the Year through the June and July period, Group Excellence Award, Caregiver of the Year, Support Leader, Support Service Team of the Year, etc. Nominations close tomorrow. So again, just urge the board, if there's anybody, any team in your mind that you did a service visit to that you would like to put forward, or indeed individuals, just have a look at those categories again and just have a think about whether you want to nominate somebody. And then finally, just to, in this section, before I just briefly touch on service visits, just really want to acknowledge Mark Major getting a really well-deserved civic recognition from the King's Birthday Honours List. Those of you that don't know Mark, he's the CEO of the North Hampshire Carers, and he's just a real consistent social entrepreneur who's consistently in meetings supporting us, trying to do things differently for our carers and for our patients, and it's just a fantastic guy to boot, and couldn't think of a more worthy recipient. So I just want to call that out really in this public meeting. And then just to close off on service visits, again, I think this section of the report is becoming quite strong now, and we're also going to be over the next period, considering the changes that are happening with part of the value programme and our general move to stabilise our finance position, which I'll pick up on later, begin to focus some of our service visits for those areas that are undergoing change at that level. So again, as a board, I'll be communicating with you over the coming kind of days into next week about the approach for that. It shouldn't mean anything material for us as a board in terms of changing the format, just changing the emphasis on areas that we choose to visit at this point in time to provide a more supportive framework around those individuals and those teams, and using the service visit framework to do that. That's all I was going to cover, Julia. I'm happy, of course, to take questions. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. Can I bring people in, Angela?
Yeah, not a question, but just to say, in terms of South Asian Heritage Month, just to say, I am exec sponsor across both Reach networks and the trust, and they did this event as a group, which is great. The networks go from strength to strength in their connectivity across the group. This was a face-to-face event in Leicester, and just to say that Mo, one of our co-chairs at NHFT, joined, and it was just great to see the networks working together like that, supporting each other. Similarly, LPT network chairs and colleagues have joined our recent Reach evening event that Linda and I were able to go to, and it was great to see the support across the group in the work that we're trying to do together against racism, and our networks helping and supporting us with that. We had a fantastic face-to-face event, you know, with people sharing stories and backgrounds, which is brilliant, but also a bit of dancing, which was a bit of fun. So it was great, and I just say thank you to everybody on that. But seeing that strength, I think is important for the board to be aware of. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, thank you. That's really brought it to life. You can see some lines in a report, but actually that just, we're all there. I feel as though we were there with you. So thank you for that. Dave, thanks for the report. I just want to say, actually, the importance of some of these new initiatives, you know, changing to the difference makers and It's incredible, and you do hear staff, and we need people to know they're valued, and any way that we can do that at every opportunity is really important. So thank you for that. And the importance, as you said, of the "you said, we did." If people take the time to feed back to us, we absolutely need to make sure they hear what we've done about some of that feedback. So that's great to hear, and we'll look out for all of those. And we'll also be alert to service visits that, as you say, focus on particularly areas who are undergoing a lot of change, because it's important to hear how people are feeling and how work's going. So thank you for all that. If there's no other comments or questions on Dave's report, we'll take that and say thank you for that. We're going to move on to our verbal updates around environmental analysis. So we'll start with Angela, if that's okay.
Thanks, Julia. Just one further update, just to say that Dr. Claire Fuller visited our L&R cluster ICB last week. That was in relation to her national work on neighbourhood working, really important area of transformation and policy direction in the 10-year plan, etc. So we were able to participate in that across the cluster, but also within NHFT and LPT, which was fantastic. And I think important to say that she is visiting all of the ICBs. This was number 22 out of 25, and she was clear that this was the most she'd heard about mental health in her visits to a system. And I think that is really incredibly important, because we know that this is happening in our services, neighbourhood work going on, and it is important to understand it in all of our population. So I was pleased that that was an outcome that she conveyed, and I know there will be a report coming to the ICB in due course. But that's all. Thanks, Julia.
Great, thanks for that. Dave, is there anything particular from yourself?
Just a few bits, Julia. Just on that theme of kind of positive feedback, I attended the West Health and Wellbeing Board recently, and we had a presentation from the Mental Health Collaborative, which was just roundingly praised as being an exemplar in the county in terms of partnership working, and some of our partner colleagues describing it as kind of the one service they don't have a problem with or an issue with, which from some of our partners is indeed high praise. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out, because a lot of work goes into supporting those partnerships and indeed the benefits to our patients as a consequence. Colleagues might be aware, and I've seen a flash report to the board, we had a fire at Brackley, which is now being reviewed with Anne supporting that work in her role. These colleagues and partners were exemplary in their support, and the incident was managed very, very effectively, and we'll keep the board updated as we know more in terms of the outcome of that review. Also on the team of partnerships, I'm joining tonight the inaugural Northamptonshire Productivity Growth and Innovation Board, which is a board to be chaired by Mike Reeder, who's an MP down in the south of the county, and that's bringing together partners to drive economic regeneration across the county, bringing together partners, and I'm there both with my health hat on, but also as the convener of the Northamptonshire Anchor Network, which is the network pulling social value and sustainability approaches across the county and bridging that public-private sector divide. So I'll keep you appraised on that in probably future managing directors' reports. So I'll update you on both those and the Health and Wellbeing Board when that moment has passed. Oh, one more thing, Julia. Sorry, just because Linda might not get a chance to cover it. We have CQC coming in to re-inspect Bedford as a secured setting as part of the HMIP work. So that's an ongoing cycle of inspection that they do in partnership with His Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons. But just keep your appraised on that.
Lovely, thank you, Dave. I was going to open it out, and Faisal, did you want to come in?
Thanks, Julia. Just whilst it doesn't directly affect NHFT and Northamptonshire, but in terms of our group working and group relationship, following the reorganisation of local government and the modernisation bill, the decision has been made for Leicestershire going to Leicestershire and Rutland going to 2 local authorities from the 1st of April 2028. Whilst that's some way off, there will be a lot of work that will be required in planning and working through with our partners in LLR system. So I think it's just worth us being aware as NHFT board as well. Thanks, Julia.
Thanks, Faisal. These are all really important updates. Has anybody else got anything from our exec team of environmental updates they want to add in? No, thank you. I'll just draw your attention to a note in the chat then from Anne, who's added in that the mental health transformation pillar in the collaborative is having a neighbourhood workshop in September to celebrate work achieved and plan future developments. Thanks, Anne. That's really important. Another sort of move towards our neighbourhood focus. That's really good to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, thank you very much for the updates. We'll move on to paper G, which I think is over to Anne for our update on system-wide winter planning and risks, and then the winter plan. Thanks, Anne.
Hi, thank you. And yeah, a change from the heat to winter, but there's, as you will probably recall from last year, there's a lot of activity this time of year as we're planning for the winter response. Each year it gets earlier and earlier, as Linda mentioned, around the flu planning, but it's definitely in full flow now. So we wanted to come to present what we know so far. It's a changing picture, or more is added each day. I mean, even as we've been sitting here, there's been another letter through about visits in the autumn from NHS England to further stress test our plans. So we thought it was important at this point to come and share, to get the board up to speed with where we're at for winter, what we've already done and where we're going to in this winter. So I will not read through the whole paper, but just the paper don't outline where the NHS letters have come through. We've had 2 letters so far at time of writing this report. And the information of we're going to have some test exercises which are scheduled in August and September. There's a real focus for this system on the sort of having this within our UEC pillars. So all of our developments are based on the work we've done on previous years, the learning we've achieved, and how we're moving forward. So it's just to remind that our responsibilities of our existing winter plans are mainly around Spinneyfields, which is now fully open, but it does have a surge capacity within it, which is a central part of the system winter plan, which opens later in the year, ready for the heart of winter, sort of Christmas and post-Christmas. We're just working through what is the surge plan, what's the signal for opening those beds. That's really important. I think we could, with the way the NHS has been, you could have beds open all of the time, and we need to be really planned and linking that into OPAL statuses. So that work's just underway at the moment. We've obviously, last winter, we increased our UCR capacity. That's continued, and it's seen as one of the key enablers and levers for winter. Also, there's another sort of pre-planning and learning from last year is just making sure that I want us to check that we've looked at our escalation spaces. And I know boarding comes into question at certain points, and that we've reviewed our sites long before winter. So we're really assured of if we go into more critical situations where space would be. And as we've already mentioned, the flu vaccination has been at the heart of everything. Within the Quality Committee, we've reviewed what the sort of ambitions for our winter plan are. This is very much localised, and it's within a number of set areas. The ones that are kind of sort of key for us is crisis response, and that's really within all of our services, from community beds, UCR and mental health. So that's key. Just looking at the occupancy levels and being really clear on pathways out of health settings, and thinking about supported discharges. What we have the opportunity to do have a group board workshop, which myself and Sam Leek from LLR are going to walk through a little bit more detail some of the requirements of the board assurance that we need to do in September. So there will be a development workshop coming up in a few weeks. Then we'll have more information coming back to board in September for us to be assured of the planning that's happened through this period and readiness for winter. So we're going to take that opportunity in a couple of weeks to walk through in more detail what that board assurance looks like in preparation.
Lovely, thanks, Anne. Can I hand it over for any questions or comments? Joe?
Thanks very much, Anne. Really comprehensive report. One of the things that just ran through my mind as I was going through this paper was just the link into the district nursing teams. You know, is there any enhanced preparation that goes into their capacity and their ability to support what inevitably becomes very congested hospital situations?
Yeah, and that's been some of the learning that we've taken through in previous years. What we've looked to remove to ease for them is the unplanned activity that can sometimes happen in district nursing or community nursing.
Okay.
So you have your lists and you go out, and then if you get calls, that can change your list. And we've tried to change that so that it sits in UCR so we can track through where the increases are needed. So rather than all community services will need an increase, which is really hard to work through on data in a consistent way, but actually really identifying the unplanned nature of work so that that sits within UCR, so that as we've got a mechanism for how we sort of have packages commissioned, we can do that in a much clearer way. I don't know that will change the intensity, but it hopefully will change that.
That makes sense. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Anne. Yes, I can really feel that if we don't address the planned care and it keeps being handed over to the next day and the next day, eventually that becomes very urgent and the impact on people is quite significant. So that thank you for that response. That's really helpful. Melanie?
Yeah, and just thank you for the update. Really clear in the paper as well what's being done. And, you know, I'll be interested at the workshop to understand better the work of the integrated hub, the new integrated hub. But I just wondered whether we were seeing a sort of an appropriate level of response from the social care side, which is a critical part of this entire plan, but not really referenced in your papers in terms of what they're doing. And how assured we can be that they are equally fronting up and putting in the resources to enable the transfers and the discharges in particular that need to be had.
Yeah, no, very key. And what I forgot to mention was that this is just our single part. The system plan has to include all partners. So the social care are also working up their winter plan and how they're feeding in. I think what has been helpful is that they also support and chair some of the pillars in the urgent care board. So it's not a health urgent care board leadership team, it's a multi-agency. And one of the things that I think has been very supportive is, we mentioned the fire in Brackley earlier, but the social care really came to the forefront to support us moving people through and getting flow quite quickly. So we want to try and harness learning from that and take that into our winter planning. So I think it gives us lots of opportunity to discuss further, but we should see theirs, and that should bring in the system winter plan, which will be helpful.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks, Melanie. Natasha?
Thanks, Julia. And really pleased, Anne, to see, as always, this is always very well advanced and very well under control. It was also really nice to see that within the Chloe's is the neighbourhoods. You've been asked to report on from a neighbourhoods perspective, and I just wondered if you could share a little bit more, I suppose, about how we are organising our winter services and urgent response services through that neighbourhoods model. How well advanced is that at this stage, and maybe some thoughts?
And yeah, there's lots of different strands, but how we do that as a system is going to be key. So it's quite a advanced part of the mental health sort of winter plan, because that's very much around our voluntary sector and how we work in partnership with them, and that's already in a neighbourhood model, which is helpful. What we've got in the physical health, or more sort of generic primary care sense, is the neighbourhood pilots with the same day access. These are really key. We've set a lot of our work up in the work we've done around pre-hospital, in-hospital, post-hospital, and they're a key part of pre-hospital or avoidance. So a lot of our metrics will be around seeing how that same day impact is seen, because they've been working and setting up since April in the sort of plan for this to come through in for winter. What that will inform then is the greater sort of scope of that, which ICB are looking at to bring on more sites to be able to have that same day access. So we were hoping to see 4 sites come on by the end of this financial year. So that's really, we're then able to measure the impact of what's happening locally. What we're doing within our community services is then looking at how we wrap around that. I'm not sure how that will necessarily map across data-wise. We've got to work that through yet, but I think that's an important part. And one of the pillars in the urgent care board is around that neighbourhoods and primary care interface. So that's really key on reporting back the impacts we're seeing, particularly as we know the working age adult population is one of the biggest increases into acute hospitals. We've tracked really well on frailty, but that's something that I think is something we really need primary care to come and work with us alongside to see what we can do different in that for that group of population of people.
I think it's a really interesting space, Anne, isn't it? It's going to be really interesting to see how this develops and how we can organise more care around natural communities. And we're going to be a key anchor, I suppose, in that as we go forwards. So yeah, thanks, Anne.
Thanks, Natasha. And yeah, it's good to hear, Anne, about our proactive plans and preparation for neighbourhoods. We know it's important for people to have care closer to home, and that's what we're striving for, isn't it? So that was really good. And thanks again for a really, really comprehensive paper laying out our thoughts at the moment and our plans. And just to commend yourself and all your teams of our connectivity in the system, because we know from previous years it's vital, isn't it? And we are making a difference. You are making a difference. So thank you for that. Okay, so we're going to take that paper as read then. Thank you very much. Faisal, I'd like to just say apologies. I saw there was a question in the chat and I concluded before I'd had a look at that. So I wondered whether, Anne, it might be worth just commenting. Faisal's had a question, I think presumably in relation to the winter plan that had just come through. Have we been commissioned for virtual wards in NHFT? I wonder if you could just comment for us. That'd be great, just while people join.
Yeah. So we do have a remote monitoring service, which is more around remote monitoring, particularly focused on nursing homes, so that we can monitor people through some quite advanced technology. There's also wider virtual wards that are linked to specific clinics in UHN. So we've got a bit of a mixed economy within Northamptonshire of how those are provided, but there are some I believe a heart one and I think a COPD, but they're very much linked into UHN. We've got more the lower level remote monitoring on a wider base. So we've got quite a number of nursing homes that are linked into that to prevent admission.
Thanks, Anne. I think I did a service visit to the wider based team a couple of years ago. Fascinating. Great work. Thank you for that. I hope that's okay, Faisal. Thanks for the question. Okay, I say welcome everybody back from our hydration break. We're going to move on to our finance and performance section of the agenda, and we're going to start with the integrated organisational report, which is paper H, and I think Dave leads us through this. Thanks, Dave. Over to you.
Thanks, Julia. And again, taking paper as read, I'll just focus on the 4 themes: performance, workforce, quality and safety, and financial sustainability. And I'll draw your eye just initially to the context of the report, because we are in a period now of transition in the organisation, both linked to the work we're doing in secured services across knots and links, but also in relation to low and medium secured services in relation to services previously based at St Andrews campus. So those introduce a set of kind of challenges in the organisation, but also opportunities. And the new model NHS framework puts a requirement on more frequent CQC inspections, greater budgetary oversight, and new contractual responsibilities. But I believe we're in a strong position in NHFT to meet those challenges, not least our award of the AFT, the ongoing work that the Trust is leading in relation to IHO, Integrated Health Organisation contracts with partners. And indeed, we're seeing positive feedback from inspections such as, well, we've had Loudon Grange, of course, which was positive for teams to hear that verbally when we're reviewing that report currently. Equally, we've had positive feedback from our inpatient units, and we await the report on that, but the initial feedback is positive. And we're seeing encouraging friends and family test scores. So those all give us a sense of confidence that we're kind of in a good position to manage some of these emerging contextual changes. We're focusing on, and the emerging oversight framework gives us a new framework around performance mechanisms with a much wider spectrum of measures now across the NHS and indeed for trusts of our type. We'll be adjusting the IOR to meet those. We've got a framework in place for doing that, and equally the Performance Committee will be taking the forward position as a trust board in relation to the focus in that. Equally, those measures will slot in under our existing level 1 committees, so the People Committee, etc., will have a set of specific measures. Finally, on this bit, just in terms of the NHS regional team changes and of course our local ICB changes, that has been challenging for people, and we're kind of getting a sense of the new operating model and how that's going to work. And we had the provider review meeting with NHS England, and the function of us as a AFT does give us a certain level of autonomy within those structures to be able to manage our issues within the trust, and where escalation is required, we're expected to have the maturity to be able to do that. So that is positive because it gives us a sense of managing our own destiny, and equally gives us the capacity to be able to focus on some of the innovations that we're taking. So that also is an important consequence of the AFT position, if there was any question about that. As a trust, we continue to promote population health and of course community cohesion, and our teams, I think, are really beginning to see and feel the benefit of that and see some hope and optimism in that work as we step into the future. So just on performance then, generally as a trust, we're moving in the right direction. There's some really good data now on our 18-week performance, the best it's been in 3 years. And of course, this does illustrate that trajectory of moving out of that COVID period into strong sustainable services after that period of time, which remains significant for us in terms of the wait list numbers. Overall, the lists have reduced significantly since March, and as I say, referral to treatment is strongest for several years, which does demonstrate that the work we're doing through various committees is having an impact for patients. And we had a targeted session on waiting lists as a group with Leicestershire to kind of explore how we can learn from approaches taken there, particularly in relation to ADHD. And we've similarly done a specific session as a board on waiting lists, and there's more to come. We're refining our fragile services wait list management approach and taking that back through Performance Committee. Performance does remain uneven across the organisation. Long waits continue in a small number of services, the services we're aware of, gender identity, ADHD, community paediatrics, dietetics, and we continue to drive programs of improvement across those. And hopefully, as we go month by month, we will see continued movement in those areas. Workforce remains our most important enabler, and indeed our most constraining enabler, in the sense that sickness absence remains higher than we would want at 6.4%. Our vacancy levels remain within tolerance, and there are positive indicators around appraisal compliance and staff engagement. But we also know that some of those services carrying our longest waits are also those experiencing the greatest workforce fragility. And there is a sickness group now in place being overseen by the People Committee, which will be providing the organisation with recommendations about how we approach that challenge. We've also discussed the context that we're in with regional colleagues to explore whether there's opportunities to learn, and indeed whether there's a wider epidemiological flavour to some of the sickness levels that we're seeing, because other trusts of our type are experiencing similar levels. But I still maintain, without necessarily having the science to evidence it, that this is part of the recovery of a very, very traumatic period of time in the NHS from COVID. It's not all related to that, but there's further work we need to do to stabilise work on productivity and the expectations of people post that period of time, and that remains challenging for us as an organisation, which is why I wanted to focus on people during the Managing Director's report to give a sense of how we're supporting people as a board. Quality and safety remains stable, and we continue to maintain close oversight. Patient safety reporting does remain above historic levels, but that reflects increased reporting maturity and, of course, the addition of secured services, but we maintain a focus on that. There's a strong culture of reporting and transparency, and we're making sure we translate some of that into measurable improvements. Finance performance is positive, but there remains a delivery risk in terms of the value programme. It remains the highest risk in that side of the organisation. Delivery is progressing, and we have a set of workforce improvement plans to deliver our workforce plan, which we met as an exec team this week on, which we'll keep the board appraised on as they progress in their development over time. So just in conclusion then, Julia and colleagues, the overall position is stable and improving in many areas, particularly wait lists and that performance, the 18-week performance, which is really positive to see. Workforce pressures continue to impact a certain number of services, but we have a plan and we're reviewing those. Quality and safety remains stable with good reporting and oversight. And although our finance plan being ahead of plan, value programme delivery remains a key risk for us as a trust. And this is the backdrop that we operate in as we prepare for significant strategic expansion through low, medium secured services acquisitions for the East Midlands. Thanks, Julia. Happy to take questions, of course, and I'll ask executive colleagues to support those as needed.
Great, thanks, Dave, and thanks again for another really comprehensive report. Judith, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia, and Dave, thank you for the update. Really good to hear the positive news. A couple of questions around our workforce. One is in regard to bank and agency reductions, which need to really, in the majority, come from our secured services. I just don't know, in relation to the last reporting cycle, how we're performing in relation to that. You know, has there been an improvement which has been expected, or are our secured services staff still struggling with recruiting and reducing bank and agency reliance? Yeah. And then my second question, if I may just quickly rattle it out, is definitely around sickness. And Tim, I don't know as chair of the committee whether I should be asking you this question or Sarah, but it'd be really good to understand perhaps at the next reporting cycle, if the work hasn't yet progressed sufficiently, as to what is the work around the sickness reduction and what is it that is expected to deliver? How is it? You know, are we addressing sickness at its root cause? Do we know the themes of our sickness reasons? You know, why staff are sick, and really, you know, if there are issues around burnout or fatigue or, you know, change management, whatever it is, it'd be really good to understand those themes and how we're dealing with those. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Julia, should I pull colleagues in as we go along?
Yes, because I was thinking Sarah's put a hand up. Do you think that would be worth?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, just to respond to a couple of points that you've made, Judith. In secured services, so we are starting to see green shoots in relation to reduction in agency. So that's positive. Obviously, that work will continue because there has been a reliance on agency within secured services, and we know that we have the challenges with drawn out recruitment processes because of the security checks and everything. So that's ongoing. Where we are having more detailed conversations at an an exec level and at a people level is around our bank. So that's currently not going in the right direction that we want it to go in. So we will be having a particular focus on that. So our value programme that Dave chaired is moving towards being rather more tactical now, because we know what we've got to do. We've got to get into the detail really of improvements that we need to make. So but bank use is definitely our focus in terms of delivery of the workforce plan. And we need to be looking at that in terms of what is the reason for bank use, how much of bank use is attributed to sickness, and that brings me to the point around sickness and the fact that as a trust, yeah, we're still maintaining higher levels of sickness. It is in certain areas. We will be having a deep dive at Joint People and Culture Committee next month on sickness. So both trusts are scheduled to bring reports to that effect. But just to give you some overview, some key headlines of things that we're working on. So there is a separate work programme that's running. We're doing it across the group actually, because the LPT has its challenges as well, around sickness. So we're sharing learning and looking at programmes of work. We have currently got scheduled for this quarter a internal audit, so for sickness absence. So that's due to take place imminently. So and that will be in particular focusing on, are we utilising our policy appropriately? Are we utilising it in a timely way? Are we being responsive in terms of policy? Are we supporting staff's health and wellbeing? So I'm looking forward to that happening in this quarter, such that then that will inform some potential more targeted actions. There's also a work stream that's running at the moment to look at our sickness policy. We are very compassionate and supportive in relation to our sickness policy, which is what we want to be, but we've got to balance that off between, are we actually doing the right thing with our staff to manage their sickness, and doing it in a timely way. So and that's something that's come up in operational management conversations just this week actually, around is our policy controlled enough in terms of enabling managers to be able to manage sickness in a timely way. So that's another work stream. We've also had a staff side focus group on sickness absence. So we had a workshop which there was some output from some actions. That was really helpful because obviously we need our staff side colleagues to support us managing and supporting staff with health and wellbeing and sickness absence. Next month we've got a workshop with our managers, our operational managers, which I think will also be really helpful to try and break down and look at key things that we need to be working on. So there is a lot going on in that space. We also are next month at Joint People and Culture Committee, we will be doing a benchmarking, looking at actually where do we fare across the patch in terms of our comparable organisations and trusts across the East Midlands. I've done that work in LPT. I'm going to bring that into NHFT because I think that will show some insights into it's a point that Dave's made around we're not an outlier in this. In fact, actually, we're probably performing better in terms of our sickness percent, our sickness rates than some other comparable trusts. However, it's still high. It's not where we want to be. We want our staff to be working in the workplace well and feeling supported. So that's why it's a key programme of work. So there is a lot going on, Judith. But I will be taking that through Joint People and Culture Committee.
Thanks, Sarah. Dave, I didn't know whether you'd put your hand up to come in on this before I bring the others in.
Yeah, just to support Sarah's comment and indeed your question on security services, we are seeing some really positive data coming out of our security services in relation to workforce stability. So their bank and agency usage is massively that, Loudoun Grange is an example, if I recall correctly, I'm looking at others to correct me if I'm not, is very stable now as a result of the work we're doing to try and get workforce in there. So really positive stuff there. But just that theme that Sarah's describing around one of the other elements of strands of work that we're doing is the feel factor for people in relation to workload. So, you know, trying to ensure people, there's a difference between actual workload pressure and sometimes the feeling that people have about workload. And we're trying to understand that a bit more for people. Some of it relates to, you know, a lot of initiatives coming all at once, which make people feel slightly overwhelmed because they can't understand where they fit into it, and that creates its own burden for people. So we're trying to start isolate some of that, and the pre-pandemic data would illustrate that there is a consistent problem across the sector in relation to that the numbers, sickness hasn't returned to those levels previously, so therefore there is a correlation to burnout in that sense. So those are kind of some of the threads of work that we're trying to mobilise. And Tim's committee, of course, will support us in that.
Thank you. And just before we move on to Duncan, I know, Duncan, you've put something in the chat as well about LPT's performance. I'm sure you'll raise that in a second, but also that Joe had raised and Angela had responded to some learning from the regional networks, and Angela's replied saying that actually the regional cases have been shared, so we are taking that learning. So thank you for that. So Duncan, shall I bring you in?
Thank you, Julia. My comments, if I may, move the conversation on, Dave. First of all, thank you for a really good and strong report. Once again, it provides great insights and assurance. Paul and colleagues, helpfully at the last performance committee, responded to the auditor's concerns about our clarity of reporting regarding the recurrent nature of the value programme. We give that a good airing in performance committee, but I wonder if you'd be so kind as to give us an update on where we are on the recurrent, non-recurrent balance of the programme as it currently sits, and your perspectives of the forward view.
Thanks, Duncan. I'll drop Paul in. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. We are, you'll remember from last year that our balance was somewhere in the region of about a third of our savings were badged as recurrent. I think we were somewhere in the high 30s in the end. And our plan for this year is around 75. So we're just in that sort of region around 62% of our schemes are forecast to be recurrent. And again, I think how we work through the workforce plan is key to understanding how we drive that even higher. But we've certainly made a gear shift from what we reported last year. I think we've talked about that here quite a lot over the last 12 months at the board. We've also been talking to staff about it a lot in that time frame as well. So certainly there is a change to what we've seen over the last couple of years, Duncan.
Lovely. Thanks, Paul. Tim, can I bring you in?
Yeah, I was going to thank Dave for the explanation around the tactical nature of some of the value programme as well, because I've struggled with this knotty issue of reducing the waiting list times, the high levels of sickness, the people that when we see turnover, it's not equitable. It doesn't happen in all the same departments or the right departments at the right time. And we have Paul trying to manage a value programme where we're trying to unlock it and find the non-recurrent savings. So David, could you just give us a bit of an outline about those sorts of tactical conversations you're having? Because this comes down to a very difficult problem to solve. And I'm conscious that numbers aside and strategy aside, we're having to make decisions on the hoof month in, month out about how you manage it.
In terms of the value programme delivery more generally?
Yes, and making sure we can keep the pressure on the waiting list and getting those down, but while we also manage workforce and sickness that is, let's be honest, not where we need it to be as well at the same time.
Yeah, so Angela, interestingly, we're talking about this morning. We have a pillar architecture in the programme, which we talked about. I think we presented it through performance committee, and fair to say, performance across the pillars is mixed in relation to financial contribution to the programme, but they are doing very positive work in terms of shifting the organisation, either in relation to productivity or alignment of job planning, you know, protocolising some workforce kind of issues, etc. So what we've commissioned as an exec team is for that programme to generate a bit of a report that gives us a sense of the movement in that across the value programme. We'll take that back through performance committee and people committee, so you can see kind of where those inputs are having a real impact more generally. I mean, fair to say the work Janice has been doing in terms of understanding where we've got pockets of really low productivity has been significant in moving some of those services on. And Morgan and I met with Duncan yesterday talking about the movement in some of our community nursing stacks, etc. Those productivity increases, we might not see the benefit of those in the financial numbers for the value programme, but we will definitely be seeing them in our waiting list numbers. And I have no doubt that the 3-year position that we're seeing in 18 weeks is probably straight line attributable to some of the work that we're doing on productivity more generally. So that gives you a sense of kind of how the elements triangulate, not always financially, but hopefully we're pushing some of the buttons that we need to. Did you want to come in on that, Anne?
Yeah, I was just going to sort of reflect on how those conversations play through. And as I think Sarah mentioned, the Dave's value group is getting a much more tactical focus. The tactical group that we've always had is moving into much more operational focus. So the discussions we have is very much that triangulation as operational leaders around how do we keep the sickness levels, the waiting lists, the finances, all in our sight and part of our discussions and decision making. And I think so that's working through the organisation, not just sitting at the top level. And I think that's really important because then it makes it very real for what's happening in a team. And a number of the things that we're doing at the moment and that Dave's instigated is around sort of town hall type events where people can come and hear and listen to what's happening and also input. So it becomes very a very shared sort of discussion rather than sitting in maybe the top of a programme. I think that's really very much what the operational group is doing, is how do we hold all of those bits of the rope together to get the best outcomes for patients and for staff.
Thanks, Anne. Dave, did you want to come in before I bring Angela in?
Yeah, I mean, Tim's question just sharpens my own thinking about the information we provide to you, so you have kind of line of sight of that. So it's a helpful discussion. Just a few other bits to top what Anne has described. We're instigating, just in terms of the programme more generally, a set of sprints now led by the executive team over the next kind of 60 days really, because they're going to be very critical to the programme more generally, focusing on the elements I've described, either blockers for change or improvements across pathways. There's an alignment of where we've got high performing parts of the organisation, so where sickness is low, bank usage is low, performance is strong, mapping those onto areas that are struggling and seeing where there might be the cross percolation of learning. We're doing a bit of that at group, of course, as you'd expect, but equally there's some work that will be done across pathways which we think will deliver high impact. And then there's a set of things coming out of SLT around rapid innovation, which Paul and others are looking at. And then, of course, ongoing work looking at our vacancy load across the organisation to try and understand if we were to begin to close off some of those vacancies, what would it do to the organisation in terms of performance? How would we do it safely, etc., and thus help us deliver the workforce plan as per kind of the people committee's oversight. Yeah, thanks, Julia. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Anne. Angela?
Yeah, useful discussion. And just to come back, Tim, you talked about the balance and the triangulation. And I think that is, that's come through the discussion, which hopefully has given that assurance. But I think the other part that is important to hear at board is that balance of safety and that sense of how, because if we take bank for an example, which is absolutely right, is an area of focus and has increased and needs to be understood and managed. At the same time, we need safe services and we need to be able to ensure that balance and triangulation is always being considered, because it's safety first elements and we don't have blanket rules like no bank, etc. So that's really important, because I know in some organisations they can apply a blanket rule to these types of things. Of course, it's much more sophisticated than that, and that's the balance that has come out through this discussion, and I hope that's clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Dave. And of course, we do see quality impact assessments going through the process. And I think at QNS, I'm sure Judith will come on to that when she does the report. I understand that this time they had a focus on that, which I won't steal the thunder of that, but just to say that that is visible to us. So that's good. Thank you, everybody. any other comments or questions around the integrated organisational report? No. So thanks again, Dave, for a really great comprehensive report that's emerging. And we know you've asked us to note the sort of the changes coming around the report, the actual reporting structure, etc. We note the performance, especially the improving position around waiting lists. I think we're all really happy with that, although we're not taking our eye off the ball for those people, those families, children, young people and adults who are waiting. We're cognizant of that every day. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to move us on to paper I, which is the Alert, Advise and Assure report from the Performance Committee. Over to you, Dit.
No, actually, Joanne wrote the report. So
Jo wrote the report. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Board will be pleased to see that there are no alert and advise elements on this report. As previously, I'll take it as read. Just a couple of highlights to pull out. The first element under the Assure section is the risk report. Just to remind colleagues, this is the first time it's taken this form. So again, like other reports, it's an evolving structure, but really positive steps forward. I won't prejudge the risk report from later in the agenda, but just to pull out BAF2 partnerships and collaborative. It's flagged as green, but the interplay with the ICB register is yet to be played through. So we just need to keep our eye on that as the ICB settles into its new structures. In terms of the integrated organisation report, we've just heard Dave talk very eloquently about it. I think just to flag again for boards recognition, the NHS oversight framework is emerging in a new form. Execs have been really proactive on this, and you'll see that a lot of change has already been put through the NHFT approach to this, promoting particular focus on population health and community cohesion, which staff are responding to really positively, and seeing that it provides a really good opportunity for just reimagining some of the focus of performance. Waiting times, I won't go into any detail on that because we've just talked it through. Quality and safety risk, again, without preempting Judith's quality and safety report. The data analysis in this section has changed slightly. Information is now being presented as rate of incident per 1,000 of caseload, rather than just purely the numbers of incidents. So it does provide a better methodology for measuring trends and allows us obviously to do a bit more longitudinal analysis, which will hopefully provide value for both quality and safety, but also for performance information. And I think I'll leave it just at that, Julia, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jo. A really comprehensive overview. Any questions, comments? Either Jo or Judith? Excuse me. No, in which case we'll note the report. Thank you very much. A very detailed report. That's good. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to our risk and governance and assurance section and start with paper J, which is our board assurance framework. And over to Richard, please.
Thanks so very much, Julia. Yes, so paper J in the pack is a copy of our group board assurance framework. Of course, colleagues will remember that we're now managing all of our strategic risks in common with LPT. So the primary forum for discussion about the detail of the risks is, of course, our group board meeting. But on account of the fact that we're meeting less frequently as a group board, we felt it was important in the meantime that trust boards receive a copy of the group board assurance framework to be cited on the progress that we're making on our risk management plans. Of course, it's worth also pointing out for the purpose of the board that we are having regular committee conversations on all of the risks in these reports, notwithstanding the slightly less frequent group board meetings at the moment. So you can see the details of each of the individual risks within the report, and you'll note that we've got 4 out of the 12 risks in the red zone, which, given our new taxonomy, means that there's some further work that we need to do to strengthen assurances and controls with those particular risks. The rest of the profile of the risks remains largely the same as it was in the last report. So I think in the interest of time, I'll perhaps hand back there to you, Julia, for any questions or comments from board members. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. I'll open the floor. Judith?
Thanks, Julia. And Richard, thanks for the report. Good to see it develop. The only question I have is in relation to whether the further consideration has been given to introducing a risk around our changing governance. We have we're taking over the services within St Andrews. That's quite a big chunk where potentially our governance needs to change. AFT, IHO, the group, there's a lot going on. Opportunities, lots of them, but it doesn't appear on our register anywhere. So it's just a follow-up really to an earlier question. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. I don't know whether, Richard, you want to come in?
Yeah, happy to. Judah, I think you're right to flag some of the risks that we're anticipating, as you say, with some of these bigger, well, dare I say, transactions that are going on. Of course, just to confirm that we have got risk management arrangements in place for each of those specific areas, as you would expect. As you say, as we learn more about the IHO contract opportunity, I think it would make sense for us to reflect as a board on then the context of that, and whether we do then want to reflect anything on our strategic register. But of course, all of those individual programme and project risks feed into the individual risks on our BAF. So the risk will be manifest in, for example, the finance risk or the workforce risk. So as you say, the only bit that isn't explicitly captured is potentially governance. But I'm very happy to take that away with the execs and have some further discussion on that. But thanks for raising it.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Judith, for the question. Duncan?
Yes, I wanted to bring to the board's attention that myself and the chair of audit committee from LPT have been having ongoing discussions about how we manage that. Indeed, we met just this morning, Julia, and brought out the points that Judith kindly raised there about the changing nature of risk. I think it is something that as an audit committee we're very much minded of, but we are also minded that we have to take our turn, as I think Richard alluded to, in that we need to better understand what is presenting to us, in particular within the IHO, and the way the trust and indeed the wider NHS is navigating that whole subject before we can do some properly productive work within this item, the BAF, and the next item that Richard is kind of going to guide us through. Let me conclude by thanking both Richard and Kate for their guidance and their work as we go through this. Thank you, Julia.
Yeah, concur with that. Thank you, Duncan. Paul?
It's just a very quick point, Julia, on the emergence of IHO, and I think it's fair to say that we're very much part of the development with national colleagues. And so there is still something about the fact that this is national policy, but NHS England themselves are still feeling their way through what some of it actually means. We're also in development, and there will be more on this in the outline business case that will come to board for consideration around actually what are the benefits going to be. And therefore, I think some of what we're talking about here about the opportunities, the benefits, some of the new risks that it brings, some of the risks that we've already got within our BAF, and about how it accentuates some of those risks or changes them slightly. We will need to revisit all of this in the context of IHO as we move forward. But because of the developmental nature of it, I think it's really difficult to sort of crystallise some of those positions, some of those issues just yet. So I think if we put it on the to-do list, Julia, we will see more of that as we talk about it as a board in development sessions, but also when we get to the outline business case.
Thanks for that, Paul. It's really important that we can raise those perspectives, and that we're on it and we're looking at it, and that we'll have some feedback when we get more information and as the model develops. So that's really good. Thank you. Melanie?
Yeah, I was just reflecting on our earlier conversation about sickness absence, and it is one of the key programmes within the trust, and certainly within the people plan and the workforce plan, but it doesn't get a mention in our two sort of workforce related BAF risks, and I wondered whether there was an opportunity maybe in the resourcing BAF to just draw reference on management of sickness absence as being a a strand, shoehorning it in maybe, which may not be helpful, but a sickness absence program and the work that we're doing on that being a strand within our resourcing risk as a control and assurance. I think it makes sure that that particular challenge that the trust is dealing with, make sure it's recognised within that workforce profile. So just thoughts of consideration, really.
Thanks, Melanie. Angela, do you mind if I bring Sarah in? Because I think she put her hand up for that. Sarah, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so Melanie, it is referenced on BAF 7. So I've included it on BAF 7 in terms of it's one of the key actions. And so it's not detailed, but I'm trying, if I put all the detail of everything that we're doing in all of our plans, then we'd have a BAF that was 100 pages long. But so I have referenced it, but I appreciate I'll when I do a next review, I'll strengthen it so you see it more.
I think
Yeah,
I've missed
no
the
worries.
reference to it, so I'll look into that. Thank you.
Okay. Lovely. Thanks, Melanie, and thanks, Sarah. Angela.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think it's a really interesting point you raise in terms of the governance perspectives of this new context, because I think, as people have described, there's a lot to evolve, but the uncertainty in it is a risk in itself in that way, and we need to consider, which we are clearly doing. That said, I think what will be important for this board is that we are part of the first wave of the NHS board development programme that's being introduced to every trust, and I think that gives us a real opportunity to explore some of that governance and assurance that we're going to need into this new context through that programme. So that will be something we'll be embarking on very imminently. But I think you're right, the uncertainty of the risk in the governance is something we need to capture. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks for that, Angela. Okay, if there's no more comments or questions, we'll take that. Thank you very much, Richard. Very comprehensive report. It's over to you next, I think, for paper K, which is the risk management framework. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Yep. So board members will recall we extended the life of our previous risk management framework so that we could do some joint work with colleagues at LPT to align our approach. This report, in essence, is the outcome of that work, which we've benefited from Kate's input on as taking the lead with this. So what you'll see here then is a proposed new framework for NHFT, which retains many of the features of our old framework that we found have worked really well for us hitherto, and also incorporates some newer features which we hope will be an improvement on what we've been able to achieve so far. Hopefully the content of the proposed framework makes sense. I think in the interest of time, I will hand it out for any comments or questions, and obviously recommend it to the board for approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Any questions or comments? Faisal?
Yeah, thanks, Julia, and thank you, Richard, for a really clear report. Just a really quick comment, Julia. The level of maturity by which the risk framework and the journey across risk, both across the group, but certainly the journey that both NHFT and LPT have taken over time, is really one to be spotlighted, but also celebrated, because it's quite often referenced and shared in national sessions where I'm talking with chairs, particularly around risk frameworks, risk management frameworks, that we're in a very good position. And we are being asked more and more, and certainly I know Angela has also, as has Kate, about sharing our journey around risk management frameworks. So I think it's just worth just sharing that for the benefit of the board. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Faisal. I'll absolutely echo that. And thanks, Richard, Kate, and all the teams for all their efforts for this. So you've asked us to approve and delegate authority to yourself for changing any terminology going forward, I think is the second ask, isn't it? Lovely. Is everybody content with that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Richard. So we're over onto the Risk Advisor and Chill report from the Audit and Risk Committee, paper L, and we're over to Duncan, I think.
Thank you, Julia. I'll take the report as read. I'm pleased to report that there were no items to alert or advise the board on. We had a successful meeting I'll bring out just two items, if I may, from the report. The first is that this meeting marked the third of our three visits by chairs of the Tier 1 committees to discuss line of sight and oversight of risk and how the committees are working together. I think this has been a really successful element and has had positive feedback from members of the committee in our ability to see and understand the work of committees at Tier 1. The action that has really come out of this, which Richard has kindly undertaken to guide us through, is perhaps a more formal way in Tier 1 committees where we signpost items between committees. We seem to do it fairly effectively at the moment, but I think it would benefit from that more formal documentation through it. The second point I'd just bring out, which has been a bit of a theme, and I think Dave has started off the meeting setting it off that we're bringing a focus in this discussion to our staff and our workforce, and the committee gave some consideration to the timing and execution of the internal audit plan and has, with Sarah and others, kind of cooperation, agreed that best advantage is to be gained from getting the insights from our internal audit service, TIA, early on in the financial year so they can support us in understanding how we navigate this year of great change for our staffing. I'll pause for any questions, Julia.
Thanks, Duncan. Really clear report. Bring in others. Judith?
Thanks, Julia. Great to play it, Duncan. Thank you very much. And my one question was really around that risk point around committees, clarity on the committee's role. I'm just wondering, do you know a timing expectation? Do you have a timing expectation for that, or is this an ongoing work that we'll be covering off in, for instance, a board workshop?
Richard, I think if my recollection serves me correctly, we're now almost immediately beginning to build this into the way the agenda is structured for our Tier 1 committees and bringing that through our chairs and vice chairs meeting with corporate governance so we can figure out how we do that rather than taking up valuable workshop time. But I think we'll have the opportunity to discuss it at further length, Judith, if we feel there is advantage to that in our meeting with Richard and his team.
Okay.
If I've got anything wrong there, Richard, please stick your hand up.
Great, thanks, Judith, for raising that, and thanks, Duncan, for the response. Faisal?
Yeah, thank you. Just on that point, Julia, I'm always cautious about complicating and formalising structures when ad hoc informal structures work really well. I was just going to say, I'm always going to defer to governance matters to Richard and Kate as the experts and specialists in this field. But I was just going to say, Richard, that we've had this approach working very well in LPT. I just wondered whether in those discussions you'll pick up with Kate at what we've done there, because I know certainly when I was level 1 committee chair, historically we would signpost things we wanted another committee to pick up or do a deep dive in, and then we would pick up the relevant portions for example, performance committee, etc. So I just think, look at this, please do that, make sure we don't lose things through the gap, but let's not create a huge industry behind. That was my only caution. Thank you.
Thanks, Faisal. Duncan, did you want to come back in, and then I'll bring Richard in?
Yes, Faisal, I think it's a point really well made, and one we have considered a bit in our discussions. If I may illuminate the discussion by looking at the litmus test that we're looking at this and where the committee started, really taking a look at where there was the opportunity for even better if. We understood that there was a lot of discussion going on in various committees around about the issue of sickness. It touches on so many of our committees, Q&S, people and indeed on the performance committee. And I think the perspective that the committee was asking Richard to help us with is making sure that things didn't fall between stools, that we didn't end up in a position in our committees talking around a subject, and one of the committee chairs took a leadership role on these matters. And I think the board will see the results of that in the greater clarity through these reports coming up to the board as to how really knotty issues like sickness are being tackled in the board agenda and the subcommittees of the board agenda.
Thanks, Duncan. Richard, did you want to come in?
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, just briefly to confirm for the board and the record, really, that we are working very closely with LPT colleagues, and certainly not, as Faisal alluded to, in the business of reinventing wheels where we don't need to. I would totally agree. We need something that's slick and simple. So that's very much what we have as a design principle, I guess, really for this piece of work. But thank you.
Thanks, Richard. And one advantage I can see of that might be that when you've referred something as a committee chair, actually, if there's a feedback loop part of that at the end as well, that might just formalise a bit of feedback, so we close the loop on certain issues. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much for that, Duncan. So we'll move on to our strategy system working section. There are no items unless anybody had any verbal updates. I think we've covered the environmental analysis. If there's anything to add there. No, thanks very much. So we'll move on to our quality and safety section. And paper M is the Alert, Advise and Assure report from the Quality and Safety Committee. And my huge thanks to Judith for chairing this in August while I was on leave. So thanks, Judith, and over to you.
Thanks, Julia. It was a real privilege and a huge thanks to the members of the Q&S for putting up with me. So the AAA is, I will take it as read. That we have 3 matters that fall under the advice category. But before I just very quickly trot through those, I would like to narrate to the board that the committee approved the publication of the quality account, which was delegated by board to the committee in its May meeting. So that's been finalised and it's an excellent report. Now, returning to the 3 matters where we felt that we needed to advise the board, the one was around the Quality Summit for Community Paediatrics, where the Chief Medical Officer has advised that following the Quality Summit, there has been and continued to be a detailed action plan, which is putting a real focus on job planning and modernising the workflow. To ensure that the referral to treatment time stops decreasing and in fact returns to normal. And of course, committee will continue to pick up any updates in relation to that. The second item is availability of call bells across an HFT estate. The reason that it was decided to bring this as an advice is because this has been an ongoing issue for quite a while in relation to 2 specific areas of our estate, which is Berrywood and Welland Centre. Although we don't have the call bells as required, we do have mitigations in place and other methods of patients being able to call staff actively in place, which is a workaround. There are specific reasons for each of the our estates why the call bells haven't been put into place for such a long time, and it is being addressed. And the final point was around our clinical audit and NICE compliance update, which has brought some really positive news in relation to the number of clinical audits that have been put in place. The reason why we still decided as a committee to advise the board was in relation to the continued delay in the NICE coordination. So the team itself is suffering with some staffing issues, and as a result, it is not able to apply itself to looking at the NICE guidance with the speed that it wants to, and therefore there is a delay and a backlog. However, this is being proactively managed, and their Quality and Safety Committee will continue to review the situation and report back to board as necessary. All the other items I will leave as read, and to the AAA there is appended the PALS annual report, the annual reports on safety and the security report as well, which the committee considered at length. Very happy to answer any questions.
Lovely, thanks Judith. I'm going to hand over to Paul first.
Just an update, Julia, on the position that Judith set out as far as the call bells at the Well-End Centre and the lack of progress that we've been seeing in order to be able to get that sorted. So Angela and I have written and since met with the provider there. It's fair to say that they were very apologetic. We've now got regular touch points in place with them. We've also got an outlined timeline which should be firmed up over the next couple of days as well. Essentially, we're looking at work starting somewhere around November, which and also with a new approach to putting the technology in, which is less invasive and therefore takes less time. So I am really hopeful that despite us having the mitigations in place, that we can put in the appropriate high-tech call bell solutions that we should have in place. And so there is some progress there, Julia.
Thanks, Paul, for that. Faisal, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Thanks for that. Paul, that's really helpful. It's linked to that point, actually. Do we have any information or any correlation that not having the call bells actually implemented whilst we've got other mitigations in place, whether that's had any impact or in terms of our measures or statistics around patient experience because they haven't got the actual call bell systems in place?
I don't believe so. I certainly haven't come across that within the committee. There were a few instances where Wi-Fi wasn't working, so we couldn't use that specific. So there were some, trial and errors, but the staff addressed it very quickly. And there is certainly no data to suggest that there's been detriment suffered by our service users or patients.
Thank you. Does anybody else need to come in on that? Has anybody else got anything else to inform that, or are we content with that? Linda, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Judith. Thank you for that question, Faisal. We haven't presented the assurance in that manner, but we do have information that supports what Judith has mentioned. So if it's all right with Trust Board, I can take away the action so that we can provide that assurance through quality and safety, because we can go and review the incidents that we've had. We will also then review feedback that we've received, and also the feedback will be looking at compliments, complaints, so that actually we do provide the necessary assurance. But I do agree with you, I think it's useful for us to then provide that assurance. So if it's all right, I can take away that action, Julia, and then we'll provide the assurance through.
Thanks, Linda. That's a really, really important sort of close the loop on that. And again, thanks, Faisal, for the question. Melanie?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to recognise the reduction in RIDDOR year on year, which I think is also real evidence of the health and safety culture being continually developed across the trust. And many people I know would see this as a sort of a challenge to have that level of RIDDOR, but I think when we see that so many of them are caused by violence and aggression from patients, it just reminds us of the situations and the environment in which our staff operate and the risks that they put themselves in, particularly in certain areas of our services. So yeah, just commending that, and also just recognising the fantastic achievement on fire safety training, again, in a mental health environment, and considering the current fire risk in particular that we're seeing across the country, to see such high levels of compliance with the training is excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. You pulled out some really, really important points. And we did actually do a deep dive on our riddles probably about a year ago, I think, just to assure ourselves around the culture of reporting and just to make sure we weren't missing anything, and came to the conclusion that we had really good systems in place to support people when sometimes unfortunate things happen. So thank you for that. Anybody else got anything they want to add to the quality and safety report? No. Thanks, Judith, for chairing that, and thank you for the very comprehensive report. And we'll move on to the next report, which is report N, and that's the Patient Safety and Learning Assurance report, and that's with Linda. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. So just to mention with regards to the patient safety report, we have taken on feedback as well as advice to structuring the report. So you will note how we are now using the statistical process controls, the SPC charts. So it's not just about a comparison, but also we're using that proactively to look at whether there's any themes or any risk emerging so that we can immediately ensure that we're responding to that, as well as putting in the necessary preventative steps to prevent any further incidents occurring. We're reporting on the top 5 safety themes. As you'll see, pressure ulcers features there, as well as the examples further on within this report of the work that's happening. We do have a proactive review process where we look at incidents to do with pressure ulcers, and the staff have taken on the learning from these reviews, and we can see some improvements in how we are managing pressure ulcers as well as preventing pressure ulcers for patients who are in our care. I just wanted to mention that when we talk of ill health, that's a category that involves quite a lot. So it's not just the deteriorating patient. If you recall, Chair, we had this discussion last year in Quality and Safety Committee when we're reporting on news. And so we sought to clarify the reporting for that category, that it will include things like your allergic reactions, it will include cardiac arrest, choking incidents. So it's not just about the deteriorating patients where we are monitoring their news score. I also wanted to highlight and thank our colleagues in Leicestershire Partnership Trust who have provided training to our teams in NHFT. This is using the Systems Engineering Initiative for Patient Safety. So that's in line with the tools provided by the Patient Safety Incident Response Framework. So Tracy Ward, who is the head of patient safety in LPT, has facilitated training sessions with very good uptake. And actually, these are now being rolled out even further. So that will not be the end of the training sessions. I also wanted to highlight our position on what we previously presented as the risk with regards to our unallocated investigations. So the way it works is that at any given time, we should have unallocated because the ROSE meetings happen ahead of the allocation. So once declared in ROSE, it's not yet been allocated. So I just wanted to clarify that. We do have cases where we need to catch up with ourselves. So a trajectory has been prepared, which will be presented to Quality and Safety Committee for their review. And again, we are working to ensure that we provide timely responses to incidents so that we learn immediately, and where we can prevent, improve, we do that immediately without delay. Just as an assurance to board, where there has been delay in completing the wider investigation through the review of significant events group, we take out immediate learning. We also identify really good practice. So it's not left until the main investigations. There are actions that are carried out well ahead of that. So the teams continue to do that. The rest of the report provides activity levels within the team, no duty of candor breaches. Pleased to report that, as well as the contact that we have with families. We've provided some information with regards to deaths and an attached report on our learning from deaths, our mortality report, that's also provided within this report. I'm happy to take any comments or questions, Chair.
Great, thanks, Linda. Another comprehensive report. Can I hand that over to Natasha?
Yeah, just a comment. Really lovely to see the rollout of the SEEPS training. I think it's such an important nationally accredited and academically backed process for evaluating patient safety. So really lovely to see the positive response, the collaborative working across the group to do it. So yeah, just really wanted to commend and say thank you. It's fantastic that you're getting demand for it as well.
Thanks, Natasha. Great comment. Faisal?
Yeah, thank you, Linda. A really clear report as ever, Linda, from you. So thank you for that. Linda, just on the serious incidents and investigations and when they're unallocated cases within timeframes, etc. One of the biggest things, certainly from our learning in LPT, which I suspect Tracy would have brought across through the training was the communication to families and carers of loved ones in the meantime of the investigation or an investigator being allocated. I think it served to hear from you for assurances to the board what plans we have in place in terms of communicating on a regular basis, keeping family and carers informed of that process. Thank you.
Thanks, Faisal. Linda, did you want to come in?
Yeah, if that's all right. Thanks. Thank you for that question, Faisal. So we had learning for that as well, including our chief exec actually meeting with bereaved family who mentioned that telling me that it's been through ROSE doesn't mean anything to me. Telling me that you're allocating doesn't mean anything to me. And we immediately took the learning from that so that when we've had a review of the significant event, our patient safety team then writes a letter to explain that process. That's then followed up by another duty of candor call by our family liaison officer who remains in contact with the family throughout, supporting them, updating them. That does not take away the role of the investigator when they make contact. It just means to say if there are delays, for example, if the police are still doing their investigation, it doesn't look like we're not communicating or saying anything. It also helps to explain some of the terminology that we use. We understand it, but actually, if you're a loved one, you do not understand it, and gives opportunity for them to then work with us when we draft those terms of reference for the investigation. So we continue with those contacts through the family liaison officer.
Lovely, thanks, Linda. Melanie?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut across you. Faisal, were you coming in to
I
close
was
that
just going to
point?
say
Sorry.
I was just going to say, Julie, that's incredibly helpful for us collectively as a board to hear, because I know I've had that conversation with Linda privately, but I felt it was very important for us collectively as the board to understand, because one of the key things that we pick up across the group is the communication, and that is so key, meeting up with people. And with the support of Linda and Angela and other exec colleagues, I've also met family members because they've reached out, and I think that is just so important whilst other things are taking place, that we maintain communication. So thank you, Linda, that's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Faisal. Sorry, Melanie, over to you.
That's okay. I was going to cycle round to medication incidents and the continuing sort of upward trend, noting a couple of references to spikes in certain areas. I don't propose for discussion here. I remember in quality and safety, probably a year ago now, we had a bit of a deep dive into pharmacy and prescribing the EPMA system. And I note the reference to the report that EPMA continues to function in inpatient units. And I would just maybe recommend that quality and safety maybe come back and revisit and understand the difference in statistics between medication incidents on wards using EPMA and medication incidents elsewhere, and review the work that's being done there to address it, that's referred to in the report, as the trend is upwards and has been for some time.
Thanks, Melanie. I'm not sure if Sachin's come back on, or whether Linda, you're able to just respond to that. I've got a comment from a Q&S angle, but I just wondered if one of the execs wanted to just come back on that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Melanie, and really happy to share that as a comparison and deep dive. Just to mention that when we look at medication incidents, we do have some that are delayed, not all are classed as errors, but we're happy to do that and provide that assurance through to Quality and Safety Committee. Absolutely, we'll take that action. Thank you.
And I do understand there might be an element of the new secured services wrapped up in this as well, which isn't clear from this report. So, and again, isn't referenced in the text, but I figure there's probably something mixed in there. So maybe that's something to explore further in the Q&S.
Thanks, Melanie. And I can assure you that I think it was 2 meetings ago, we did have a medicines report. I think it was 2 ago, and it clearly identified the volume that were coming from the new services and from secured services generally, and there was lots of information and assurance around those. And we also heard from the new chief pharmacist that there's going to be much more of a focus on trends. And I think Natasha's put her hand up because she's actually been out to the team, so that would be helpful. Do you want to come in, Natasha?
Well, just to say I got really good assurance going out to see the pharmacy team, and it was really eye-opening to see the range of initiatives and how well they're collaborating across those. But actually, I was going to say, in terms of the data reporting, I think we have raised this at some of the subcommittees as well, in terms of having that clear line of sight over, as we take on big new chunks of service provision, whether that be the prisons, community paediatrics, or the St Andrews healthcare services that we will be supporting in the future, that we do have the visibility of those within our governance and reporting framework. So it is important that we understand how we do that and how we understand those individual services, and then actually how they coalesce into the one NHFT data over time that we can continue to monitor. And I just think it's an ongoing conversation that I think we are abreast of and have had conversations about. But I think just I think for note, not necessarily in terms of any action today, but I think it is important that we continue to think about how best we do that in our governance structures going forwards.
Thanks, Tasha. Really, really important point. Sachin, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether you would like, Julia, whether you'd like a report for the next board about the policies and, and what is just happening with the pharmacy and what we are doing to bring all this together. That's all.
Thanks, Sachin. I wonder whether perhaps with Linda, Itai and yourself, perhaps we should look at that perhaps through Quality and Safety Committee, where we've had the updates anyway. That would be really helpful to have a sort of a current position and bring it all together. But I think possibly if everybody's in agreement, that might be best served through Quality and Safety Committee, and then we can feed that up through in our, if that suits everybody, that would be great.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Richard's just put in the chat around currently establishing new governance arrangements to support the medium secure services transferring from St Andrews in September, and that should go some way to address that part of that. So that's good, thank you. And the only point I wanted to draw out was, and I do most boards actually, I really like the learning from deaths reporting at the end, and it doesn't always get a mention otherwise. And the table that has the learning and the action taken, the sort of really clear actions, a couple across secured services, it's very clear that we can see the impact of any learning we've had, and really appreciate that. And just wanted to call that out, that's a really good example of laying out how we learn. So thank you, Linda, for that. So thanks for the paper. Muted myself. Thank you, everybody. Okay, back with you, Linda, for paper O, which is Monitoring Workforce Safeguards Report. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Again, we've taken on feedback through board and other meetings where this paper is presented. So you will note now that we've clearly articulated the key areas that we had been asked to make more clear within the report, because it wasn't too clear when we're talking about the key areas of positive practice that we're reporting, and then the key risks. So we've put that clearly at the beginning of the report, and I hope you'll find that useful. We are reporting on activity with regards to our staffing, looking at this from a safety lens and a quality of our services lens. As you'll see, we report on the vacancies and also report on the areas where it seems that there's still challenge in recruiting into those areas or filling those vacancies, but there are mitigations in place. And this is discussed, triangulated with some really good confirm and challenge from all the teams who are involved. We have already discussed some of the areas where recruitment is taking longer, where you will see in some of the areas like children, young people, it actually means we do need some specialist practitioners recruited to those areas. So it does take longer to then recruit into those areas, but there are mitigations in place, including working through our approval process for bank staff to then cover whilst we recruit. So again, like Sarah said, there'll be an exec focus on that, because some of that bank usage is to cover those harder to recruit areas. So we do need to look at it fully and understand it. So there will be an increase and a spike, but actually some of that is attributable to covering essential gaps that we have whilst recruitment is taking place. Within the reports, provided an update where we've triangulated the incidents reported that were attributable to staffing. And as you can see, these have been reviewed, as well as where additional input is required, that has been stepped in immediately so that the teams are supported and that patient safety remains key within the organization. I'm also pleased to mention that within the report, we have provided assurance on actions that the Trust is taking. So when we've been talking about sickness absence, we've absolutely noted where things are going well, with actions being put in place around when staff on board, the support that they need through induction, and various other things that have been put in place, including regular reviews where there are hotspots with regards to staffing. And I won't rehearse that because we've already gone through that, and some of it will come through the people reports that Sarah presents. I've also provided our submissions as an appendix for our fill rates, so that shows that our wards, our inpatient areas are safe, because we have covered those where previously we had some challenges. As you remember, Chair, we had quite a lot of unfilled shifts, but that has reduced significantly. So a huge thank you to all those working in the inpatient areas and our staff bank team, who are always very responsive and supportive of where we require that additional support. I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Thanks, Linda. While I open it up to others, I really like the format, the improved workforce sustainability information and the risks, and the safer staffing table gives us an instant visual idea of the different areas, and I think that helps us really get underneath what's going on. So thank you, really like that. Anybody got any questions or any comments? Really comprehensive full report. No, so we're being asked to note the assurance level, endorse the ongoing recruitment retention interventions, support targeted investment in high-risk workforce groups, and monitor the continued development of staffing metrics, etc. Everybody happy for that? Lovely, thank you. Thanks, Linda, very much for that one. Moving on to paper P, which is the adoption of the Lord Mann report recommendations. And I think this is over with Sarah as Group People Officer. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the formal report to ask the board to formally adopt the Lord Mann review recommendations. Colleagues will be aware that in June we received a letter from Lord Mann, the Lord Mann review, which was around addressing anti-Semitism and racism within the NHS. There were a number of specific and immediate actions that NHS England have asked us to implement. They're set out in the paper. Also within the paper, we've done a mapping exercise against the actions, and pleased to say that on a number of them, we're already doing work. It very much aligns with our Together Against Racism strategic priority and our Thrive strategy. So there's just further strengthening of some of the actions that are set out within the plan. So essentially the proposal is for us to formally adopt the recommendations, which include the 7 principles of anti-racism, the definition of anti-Semitism, and the definition of anti-Muslim hostility. We will need to publish, we're asked to publish this tomorrow in terms of our trust adopting those recommendations via NHS England. The governance around this will be through our Together Against Racism work stream, our diversity management group, and the EDI group in LPT, because we're doing this work as a joint group arrangement through Hasib, who's our joint head of EDI now. And it will have ultimate oversight via joint people and culture committee in terms of governance, but also has a place at our strategic exec board as well. Okay, so I'm asking the board to support us adopting the recommendations, please. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Really clear paper. Faisal, can I bring you in?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. We received a similar report at LPT, so thank you very much for the report here for NHFT. I was just going, before we go to approval, I think, Julia, I think if there's anything to be learnt from the Baroness Amos and Dame Donna Ockerden's reports, whilst they covered maternity services, but it underlined and it cut through all of their work the importance of understanding, recognizing racism and the costs to families and staff when these things aren't tackled. So I think this is just another kind of support from NHS England for trust to implement. I think it's just the importance of recognizing and then actually doing something about this. So it's really important work. So thanks for that, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks, Faisal. I think you summed that up beautifully, and thanks, Sarah, again for a really clear report. So is everybody happy to adopt the principles and definition, etc., on behalf of NHFT? Yeah, thank you very much, and we look forward to further reporting on it through People and Culture Committee. So thanks, Sarah. Last item is paper Q, which is the board's declaration of interests register, which we produce and update regularly. Anything for anybody to add or any comments? No, satisfied with that. Thank you very much. So we're on to any other business. Haven't been notified of any other business before the meeting. Just checking that there's nothing from anybody else. Faisal.
Yeah, I just can't let it go, Julia. It would be very remiss of me to say not to thank you for chairing the board in public and private, to give me the opportunity to be a bit more of an observer and also get my brain back into gear after being on a week and a bit's break. So thank you very much, Julia.
You're welcome. Thanks, Faisal. A pleasure, a privilege. So a little snapshot of the performance, about timings and anything else should have been on the agenda. I'm going to have to do what I always do and throw in the service delivery pathway story. Oh my goodness, Maverick Sounds. I'm going to bring us back to that as we finish. Goodness me, what an amazing, inspirational story. Passion came through and the impact for people was absolutely huge. So I might well take up the offer of going to see them in action. But yes, absolutely phenomenal story. And again, that's why we set that at the beginning of the board meeting every time, to set the tone, remind us what we're all about. So that was fantastic. And our thanks to everybody, Anne, and over to Anthony and Sam and Rachel for the fantastic presentation. Is there anything else anybody wants to add about timings? Or we're early, so hopefully there won't be any poor timings. Anything else that we needed to take note of? No, in which case I'm going to say next meeting's the 24th of September at 9:30. And thank you everybody for your contributions.